Have you ever sat in an English meeting? You know, brilliant ideas buzzing in your head, but felt kind of stuck finding the words.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe you did speak up, but the nerves made your voice unsteady, and you worried people weren't really hearing your message.
It's such a common challenge, isn't it? And the truth is, well, that feeling of confidence in those moments,
Yeah.
it isn't just about having perfect English.
Right.
The materials you shared really dig into this, and they show it's actually about specific learnable strategies, things anyone can master, regardless of their current fluency level.
That's the key insight we're diving into today. Welcome to the deep dive. So we've taken that stack of material you provided, articles, research notes, all of it, and we're here to pull out the most important nuggets.
Yeah, the surprising facts, those actionable techniques that can genuinely make a difference.
Exactly. This deep dive is all about giving you a shortcut, basically, to feeling well-informed and well-empowered in your next English meeting.
And it's needed. The sources point out something quite striking. Over 67% of non-native English speakers report feeling anxious in these business settings. So if that sounds like you are definitely not alone.
Definitely not. And the good news, confidence is a skill. It's not like some magic trait you either have or you don't. We found some incredibly practical strategies in this material, things you can start using right away, whether your challenge is finding the right words or speaking under pressure, or maybe handling those tricky questions.
Exactly. Think of it like building your toolkit. Let's jump straight into the first crucial element the sources highlight.
Okay, strategy number 1 then. Master essential meeting vocabulary. Now, this sounds simple, maybe obvious, but why is building the specific vocabulary so, essential?
It's fundamental, really, because having a ready bank of meeting phrases, it frees up your mental energy. If you're constantly searching for the right word or the right sentence structure while also trying to form your brilliant idea.
Your brain's doing double duty.
Exactly. It's overloaded. Having these phrases ready lets you focus on your actual content, on the message itself.
Okay, so it's like having your tools laid out neatly before you start a project. Makes sense. The material breaks down different phrase categories too, right? Like for starting discussions.
Precisely. So instead of just, jumping in cold, using phrases that clearly signal your intention makes you sound much more professional, more prepared.
Okay.
Things like, I'd like to address the issue of, or let's discuss the matter of. Even something pretty direct like, I'd like to bring up a point about.
Yeah, those immediately sound much more purposeful than just sort of hesitating at the start.
Mm-hmm.
What about for giving your opinion?
Right. You want phrases that clearly state your view, but still sound, open to discussion. Things like, from my perspective, or based on my experience.
Or even just, I believe that.
Exactly. Simple, clear, great starting points.
I like that the sources also include phrases for agreeing. It's not just about making your own case, is it?
Right. Showing you've actually listened and you're building on what others have said. That's powerful. So instead of just a flat, I agree, maybe try something like, I completely agree with what Name said about.
Oh, nice.
Or, that aligns with my thinking on. A really good one from the material is, I'd like to build on Name's point. It shows you're adding value, not just echoing.
Yeah, building on is great. Now, disagreeing,
Yeah.
that's often the scariest part for people, I think. The material stresses doing it professionally, yeah.
Absolutely critical. It's about disagreeing with the idea, not the person. So phrases like, I see your point, however.
Right.
Or, I understand your perspective, but have we considered...
Those soften it a bit. Or, that's an interesting approach. Another way to look at it might be, that one feels really constructive.
It is. It presents an alternative without being confrontational. The sources share this great little story about a client from Brazil who felt really insecure about speaking up. She took this idea and created her own personal phrase bank, just like 3 or 5 go-to phrases for each situation, starting, opinions, agreeing, disagreeing, reviewed them before meetings, and her confidence just visibly grew.
That phrase bank idea feels really concrete, really actionable. It gives you that reliable language when you're under pressure. Okay, so takeaway number 1, build your meeting phrase bank.
And building right on that, having those essential phrases ready, let's talk about the very, very beginning of when you speak. Strategy number 2, prepare powerful opening phrases.
Okay, why such a specific focus just on the opening? Is it really that critical?
The sources really emphasize this. Those first few seconds, the very first words out of your mouth, they create an immediate impression. It's like walking into a room, how you enter sets the tone, right?
Yeah.
Hesitant openings can signal uncertainty, maybe a lack of conviction, but confident ones, they establish your presence right away.
I know, I've definitely used those hesitant ones myself. Like, I just want to say, or, well, I'm not sure if this is right, but they do feel a bit apologetic, don't they?
They really do. And the material contrasts those with phrases that project authority and clarity from the get-go. So if you're presenting findings, maybe, I've analyzed the situation, and here's what I've found.
Much stronger.
Or making a recommendation. Based on the data, I recommend we. Clear, direct.
Or even just structuring your thoughts. I've prepared 3 key points about this issue. That tells everyone what to expect, makes you sound super organized.
Definitely. And for joining a discussion that's already going, instead of that apologetic interruption, try something like, I'd like to add something important to this discussion, or you can link it. This reminds me of a situation we handled successfully by. Shows relevance.
And for tackling problems head on.
Maybe. I've identified the core issue, and I believe we can solve it by. Or, let's break this down into manageable parts. Again, proactive, confident.
There's a story in the sources, isn't there? About a Spanish executive.
Yes. He apparently had this habit, almost a tic, of starting with, sorry to interrupt, but all the time. Just replacing that with these kinds of confident openers completely shifted how his colleagues saw his leadership.
Wow.
It wasn't just what he said anymore, but how he started saying it. Big difference.
It's a huge transformation just from changing the first few words. The material suggests recording yourself saying these openers. That feels important, actually hearing how you sound.
Absolutely. Hearing it back is key. Practice them until they feel natural, not forced. A great little exercise suggested is pick 3 powerful openers. Practice them aloud every day for a week. Just a few minutes. It helps make them automatic.
Right. Muscle memory for your mouth. So strategy 2. Prepare and practice those opening phrases. Don't just stumble in, walk in with purpose.
Okay, so we've covered having the right words ready and starting strong. But, the sources also make a really compelling case that communication isn't just verbal.
The nonverbals.
Exactly. Which brings us to strategy number 3, focusing on body language and vocal techniques.
This is where how you say something can sometimes matter even more than the exact words you choose, right?
Absolutely. Research shows again and again that nonverbal cues, posture, gestures, your voice quality heavily influence how confident and credible you come across.
Okay, let's break that down. Starting with body language. How should we, hold ourselves?
Well, the basics are really key. Good posture. Sit or stand up straight, shoulders back. The sources even mention that fascinating Harvard research on power posing.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that.
Just holding a confident pose for 2 minutes can actually increase confidence hormones and decrease stress hormones. It's like a physical hack that affects your internal state.
That is amazing.
And
Kind of easy. So stand tall. What about hands? I know people fidget or just don't know what to do with them.
yeah, hands can be tricky. The idea is purposeful and controlled gestures. Keep them generally within what they call the credibility zone, sort of between your chin and waist.
Okay.
Think of them as reinforcing your points, not flapping around distractingly.
Got it. And eye contact. That feels extra important, especially now with so many virtual meetings.
Crucial. Make direct eye contact. In person, you'd scan the room, make brief contact with different people. Online, the trick is to look at the camera lens when you're speaking.
Not at the screen.
Right. Looking at the camera makes it feel like you're looking directly at the person you're talking to. Looking at their picture on screen makes you look like you're looking down or away.
Good tip.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's body language. Now, vocal techniques. This feels like something a lot of non-native speakers might not focus on as much.
But it's so vital. First off, pace. When people get nervous, they tend to rush. Speed talking.
Guilty.
It signals anxiety. So consciously try to speak slightly slower than your normal pace. It makes you sound more thoughtful, more deliberate, more in control.
Like taking a breath,
Yeah.
speaking a bit slower, lets the words land, projects calm. Yeah.
Exactly like that. And strategic pausing. Don't be afraid of a little silence. A short pause after making a key point gives it weight. It shows confidence. It says, yeah, I made my point. Let that sink in.
And pauses are definitely the best replacement for filler words, right? The likes.
Yeah.
They really do weaken your authority.
They absolutely do. Replacing them with a conscious pause takes practice, for sure, but it makes you sound so much more polished and confident. It's a huge upgrade.
What about voice modulation?
Yeah.
Avoiding that monotone drone.
Yes. Vary your tone. Naturally raise your pitch slightly for questions, lower it for definitive statements. It keeps listeners engaged, adds meaning. It makes you sound more dynamic.
There's a story in the material, right? About an engineer.
Yeah, a brilliant Japanese engineer. Amazing ideas, but his delivery was, well, monotone and full of fillers. People kind of tuned out. He practiced these specific vocal techniques, and it completely transformed his impact. People started listening differently because his voice sounded confident.
It's about making the delivery match the quality of the ideas. Okay, so strategy 3. Really leverage body language and vocal techniques. Posture, gestures, eye contact, pace, pausing, cutting fillers, and modulating your voice.
Right. Now, let's shift gears just a bit. Confidence isn't only about your speaking time. The sources point out another critical area: how you listen and respond to others.
Okay. Strategy number 4. Active listening and response strategies.
This is so often overlooked. We get so focused on what we're going to say next, we forget that how we engage when others are speaking also projects confidence and respect, actually.
Active listening. It's not just hearing, right? It's fully concentrating, really understanding, and then preparing a thoughtful response. Shows you're present.
Totally. And a really practical tip from the material is taking brief notes while others speak. Not trying to write everything down, just key points.
Keeps you focused.
Exactly, and helps you formulate your own contribution or question later.
And using those little confirming phrases shows you're tracking. Yeah, like that's an interesting point about, or I see what you mean regarding.
Or even, so if I understand correctly, you're suggesting these phrases are like bridges between listening and speaking. They prove you've actually processed what was said.
What about those moments where you get asked something and you need a second to think? Panic moment.
Yeah. That's where bridging phrases are gold. They buy you time while keeping you looking confident. Things like, that raises an important question.
Buys you thinking time.
Exactly. Or let's look at this from another angle. They let you organize your thoughts without just awkward silence or blurting out something half-baked.
The material also introduces a specific framework for handling more complex questions on the spot. Acknowledge, answer, advance.
Yes, it's a great structure. First, acknowledge the question thoughtfully. That's a critical question about the timeline, shows you value it. Second, answer clearly based on what you know. Based on current progress, phase 1 should wrap up by June. And third, advance the conversation. And this connects nicely to the resource allocation discussion we need to have next.
That structure provides such a clear path when you're put on the spot. There was an anecdote too, right? Someone used it in a board meeting.
Yeah, and got complimented on their composure afterwards. It really highlights how structure can create confidence even under pressure.
It really reinforces that idea of quality over quantity too.
Yeah.
A thoughtful response after listening carries way more weight than just jumping in first.
Absolutely. Focus on engaging deeply. So strategy 4. Practice active listening, use confirming and bridging phrases, and try frameworks like acknowledge, answer, advance for composed, thoughtful responses.
Okay, now for the big one. What many people find the most intimidating part. Facing questions and objections. Strategy number 5 is all about handling those confidently.
Yeah, this is where you can feel really exposed, especially in a second language. And the sources are clear. Preparation here is just key.
How so?
Well, they introduced this idea of a question bank. Before a big meeting, you proactively list the questions you hope you get asked, the supportive ones.
Okay.
And crucially, the ones you dread, the challenging objections, the tough questions. Then you actually outline clear answers for them beforehand.
Oh, I love that. It feels like it would massively reduce anxiety. You've already faced the scary stuff in your head.
Exactly, you're prepared. But what about those curveball questions? The ones you just couldn't predict? That's where a framework like pre-pre comes in handy.
Pre. Okay, what's that stand for?
Point, reason, example, point. Simple but effective. You state your main point clearly first. Then you give the reasoning behind it. Then provide a specific, concrete example to illustrate or back it up. And finally, you restate your main point to kind of wrap it up and reinforce it.
Okay, can you walk through an example? Like if someone questioned prioritizing a certain market.
Sure. Using PPP. Okay, we should prioritize the European market first. Point. The reason is our data shows higher potential for early adoption and less resistance there compared to other regions. Reason? For example, our recent pilot in Germany showed a 40% faster customer conversion rate than our trial in Asia. Example. So that's why prioritizing Europe makes the most strategic sense right now.
Wow, that is incredibly clear and structured for an on-the-spot answer. Sounds so much more convincing than just, rambling.
It gives you that structure when your mind might be racing. Now, for direct objections, someone directly challenges your idea. The material offers the validate, clarify, respond approach.
Validate, clarify, respond.
Okay. Tell me more.
Right. First, validate their perspective. Show you're listening and respect their view. I appreciate you raising that concern, or that's a valid point to consider. It disarms them a bit. Second, clarify their specific objection. Make sure you understand exactly what they're challenging. So if I understand correctly, your main worry is about the upfront cost. Is that right? Pinpoint it.
Okay.
Third, respond thoughtfully, using your evidence or perspective. Thanks for clarifying. Yes, the upfront cost is significant, but our analysis shows it actually leads to a 15% ROI within 18 months because of XYZ.
That whole approach feels much more confident and way less defensive than just immediately pushing back. You're showing composure, engaging with the objection. Absolutely. And the story about the marketing director who used to get flustered by objections but then mastered this, it's quite telling. Not only did she feel calmer, but her team saw her as more authoritative and open, so they actually started bringing her more tough questions because they trusted her process.
That's fascinating. So, takeaway 5. Prep for questions with a question bank, use PRAP for the unexpected ones, and handle objections with validate, clarify, respond. Preparation and structure are definitely your allies here.
So true. We've covered starting, speaking, listening, responding to questions. Now let's look at the end. Strategy number 6, effective closing statements.
Closing. Why is the end so important? I usually just kind of stop talking.
Think about that primacy recency effect people talk about. We tend to remember the first thing and the last thing most vividly. How you finish your contribution really impacts whether your ideas stick and lead to action. Just trailing off, it can undermine everything you just said.
Okay, good point. So don't just fizzle out, end with intention.
Exactly. The sources highlight a few different types of powerful closings. A summary close is great after you've presented several points. So, to quickly summarize my 3 key findings. The data shows X, our analysis suggests Y, and therefore our recommended next step is Z.
Nice and tidy. What about an action-oriented close?
Use that when you want to drive the next steps. Okay, based on this, I recommend we approve the budget for phase 1 today and then schedule the implementation kickoff for next week. Does that sound right? Pushes for commitment.
A question close sounds interesting too.
Yeah, that invites final discussion before a decision is made. Look, this strategy requires a significant investment. What further information or clarification can I provide before we make a final decision? Opens the door thoughtfully.
And I really like the idea of a connection close, tying things together.
Yes, it shows you've been listening throughout and can synthesize. And echoing what Sarah said earlier about streamlining processes, this new workflow design directly addresses her point by cutting down approval time by nearly 50%. Connects the dots.
Those are all so much stronger than just stopping. The material also has tips on how to actually deliver the close, doesn't it?
It does. First, signal your closing. Use clear signposts like, to conclude, in summary, or, so, my final recommendation is. It tells people, okay, listen up, this is the wrap-up.
Got it.
Second, maintain strong vocal energy. Don't let your voice trail off or speed up at the very end. Finish as strongly or even slightly stronger than you started.
And third, crucially, avoid those confidence-killing qualifications at the end.
No, but that's just my opinion. Or, well, maybe this won't work, but...
Exactly. That anecdote about the financial analyst, he stopped ending his presentations with, but that's just what I think, and barely his perceived authority shot way up.
Yeah.
That little phrase was undermining all his solid data.
It's like taking back your power at the last second. Practice tip, then. Record just your planned closing statement. Does it sound definite? Do you signal it? A strong close leaves a really powerful final impression. Absolutely. So strategy 6, prepare effective closing statements, signal them clearly, maintain that vocal energy, and ditch the weak qualifications. End strong.
Okay, we have covered so many powerful techniques, the vocabulary, the openings, nonverbals, listening, handling questions, closings. But, how do you actually make these skills stick? How do you get good at them?
Yeah, the million-dollar question.
That brings us to our 7th and final strategy, consistent practice routines.
This is really where the rubber meets the road, isn't it? Knowing all these strategies is great, but it's not enough. You have to actually do them. Confidence is definitely a skill, and like any skill, it grows with deliberate, consistent practice.
And the material offers some really structured practical ideas for this, which I found helpful, like that 5-minute daily drill.
Yeah, that one's brilliant because it's so manageable. Just 5 minutes a day focusing on one specific aspect, like maybe Monday. Practice 3 powerful opening statements aloud. Tuesday, Record yourself talking for 2 minutes and analyze your pace and fillers. Wednesday. Practice answering a tough question using PRP. Thursday. Focus just on eliminating ums and uhs. Friday. Practice 3 strong closing statements.
5 minutes. Anyone can find 5 minutes, right? And focusing on just one skill each day makes it feel less overwhelming.
Totally. Another great approach is the meeting simulation technique. Once a week, maybe set aside 10-15 minutes to simulate a specific meeting segment. You could role play with a colleague, or even use some AI tools now that can generate realistic conversation scenarios.
Or record yourself playing both sides of a discussion.
Exactly. It's like an athlete running drills for specific game situations. Targeted practice under simulated pressure.
Makes sense. And then there's the pre-meeting power routine.
Yeah, this is a quick 5-minute routine right before an important meeting. Like 2 minutes quickly reviewing your key phrases or points, 1 minute doing a power pose, 1 minute of vocal warm-ups or just deep breathing, and 1 minute visualizing yourself speaking confidently and effectively.
I can really see how that little ritual, the physical and mental prep, could make a huge difference. Shifts your whole state before you even walk in the room or join the call.
It really can. And finally, the post-meeting review. This one's simple but powerful. After each real meeting, take just 3 minutes to reflect. Jot down one thing you did well, one area you want to improve, and one specific technique from this deep dive you'll focus on practicing before the next meeting.
That feedback loop. Learn, apply, reflect, refine. That's how you get better fast. Right.
That's exactly it. It creates this cycle of continuous improvement. The sources tell that great story about Aiko from Japan, who used these routines consistently. Apparently, within just a couple of months, she went from being really hesitant to speak up to being the person her colleagues actually went to for advice on handling meetings. Consistency was her secret weapon.
That's inspiring. And you don't have to do all of these routines at once, right? Just pick one. Maybe start with a 5-minute daily drill this week. See how it feels.
Absolutely. Start small, build momentum. Confidence isn't some endpoint you reach. It's a journey of consistent practice. These routines just provide the structure to make that journey effective.
Okay, so to quickly recap the journey we've taken through these 7 strategies for mastering confidence in English meetings, all based on the source material.
Okay, number 1. Master essential meeting vocabulary. Build that personal phrase bank.
2. Prepare powerful opening phrases. Start strong. Set the tone.
3. Leverage body language and vocal techniques. Posture, pace, pausing, all that good stuff.
4. Practice active listening and use frameworks like acknowledge, answer, advance for really thoughtful responses.
5. Handle questions and objections confidently with preparation the question bank and structures like PRVP and validate, clarify, respond.
6. Craft effective closing statements and memorably end strong.
And 7. Commit to consistent practice routines to actually build these skills over time.
So this deep dive has hopefully given you the roadmap, the strategies laid out on the sources. And the fundamental takeaway really is that confidence in English meetings, it's a skill.
It really is. It's built through strategic preparation and deliberate practice. And it's accessible to anyone, truly, regardless of where your English level is right now.
So maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. Focusing on these performance aspects, the structure of your points, your nonverbal cues, how you handle the back and forth, might actually have an even bigger impact on how you're perceived than, say, tiny improvements in grammar.
That's a really interesting point.
It sort of shifts the focus from just linguistic correctness to effective communication, to influence, to connection. Confidence isn't just this internal feeling you hope to magically find one day. It's a set of observable behaviors you can actively choose to practice and master. And doing that can fundamentally transform your presence in any English meeting.